Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to welcome each and every one of you to the GST Conclave organized by the Views Exchange CACP Study Circle of EIRC of ICAI on the 26th of April 2024. My name is Ishan Tulsian and I'm a practicing chartered accountant from Kolkata, and I'm a partner at R.Tulsian and Company, which is a full services multinational 60-year-old CA practice having its headquarters in Kolkata and having its branches across West Bengal and its overseas group companies in countries such as Bahrain, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, and in countries such as UK and USA. I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to CA Pulak Sahaji, who is the chairman at the Esteemed Study Circle, as well as CA Nitesh Morji, who is the president at the Esteemed CA Circle, Study Circle, for having invited me over here today to discuss on the topic of investigations and procedural safeguards under GST available for the taxpayers. I would like to acknowledge the presence of my other fellow esteemed speakers who have spoken so well on the respective topics given to them during this GST conclave today. Let us dive in and discuss what shall we actually discuss today under the topic of investigation procedural safeguards under GST. So since I have 50 minutes and we cannot discuss the entire of investigations, proceedings, so we are going to discuss the investigation proceedings from the point of view of summons, how to handle summon notices, what are the rights which are available for the taxpayers or the person summoned during summons proceedings, how the summon proceedings should be conducted, what are the kind of documents which should be submitted during summons and post summons. Also, what are the from the point of view of latest CBIC guidelines and in the light of judicial precedents, how should the conduct be and what should be the rights and the do's and don'ts of the taxpayers during these investigation proceedings. Also, the kind of documents which are required to be maintained before the investigation and the kind of documents to be submitted during the investigation proceedings. Also, we are going to walk through real life summons notices and how to reply to such summon notices with supporting documents and discuss certain real life case studies regarding the same. Also, we are going to discuss about the practical aspects of the legality of payments which are made during investigation proceedings in the guise of voluntary payment, but those are usually enforced payments in the light of judicial precedents. Also, we shall discuss about the practical aspects as well as the legality of initiation of parallel investigation proceedings by several investigating bodies at the same time on similar or different subject matters on the same taxpayer for the same tax period in the light of judicial precedents and latest CBIC guidelines. Also, we shall discuss we shall also analyze the latest CBIC guidelines on investigations which have been issued on the 30th of March 2024, and if time permits, we shall discuss about the other aspects which of attachment of property and blocking of input tax credit ledger and all of that. Let us move ahead and discuss, as mentioned, what is the term GST investigation. Now, GST investigation encompasses several entrusted powers of the proper officers under the GST Act, whereby they can carry on several activities in the name of GST investigation. As I've already mentioned, first being the power to issue summons to any person or the taxpayers to provide any evidence or to produce any documents which has an evidentiary value under section 70 of CGST Act. Also, the proper officer under GST Act can inspect, can search and can seize under section 67. Also has the power to access business premises under section 71 of CGST Act. Also, the proper officers have the power to inspect any goods in movement under section 68 of the CGST Act and the power to arrest under section 69 of the CGST Act. Now, let us see who can investigate under GST. Now, who are these investigating authorities? Who are these proper officers? So, from the point of view of issuing summons, usually the superintendent of your superintendent of your range office, your jurisdictional office, he has the power to issue summon notices as per Circular 3/2017. Now, The superintendent can also, if for instance, if you are registered administratively assigned and registered under the state department, SGST, that is the state authority, so your range office will fall in the state authority. So the superintendent of that particular range office can issue a summons notice for you. Also, a central tax officer from the CGST wing also can issue a summons notice for you, even though you have been administratively assigned and under the state authority, right? Also, there are certain apex investigating authorities such as the Directorate General of GST Intelligence, the DGGI, which has a pan-India jurisdiction. So it can also, if it takes up the matter, it can also issue summons and can initiate investigations in by search and seizure or by inspection or by issue of any letter clarifying or seeking documents. Now, also it is vital to mention that any officer who is above the rank of a superintendent, as per section 5 subsection 2 of CGST Act, it says that any officer can exercise or enforce the powers entrusted in the subordinate officers. So usually a superintendent issues a summons notice with the prior written approval of the assistant commissioner, deputy commissioner, ACDC. But here ACDC can also issue summons notice because it is an officer who can exercise the powers entrusted and entrusted in the superintendent, right? Now let us discuss what type of documents are required to be maintained, what types of records which are required to be maintained by the taxpayers, so that at any given point in time, if any investigation proceedings are initiated in the form of issuing of summons or inspection or any search and seizure, so there should be sufficient documents at the registered place of business, whereby these documents can be shared, can be submitted during investigations, or also should be available with the taxpayer. These are very basic documents such as your stock register, your stock ledger should be there containing details of your raw materials, your finished goods, as well as all the records of your suppliers, the records of all the outward supplies which you made during the year, details of the output tax payment, details of all the input tax credit claimed, utilized or reversed during the year. Also, in case if you're involved in any works contract or job working, the details regarding that, invoices, any data or details regarding any branch transfers intrastate or interstate amongst different GSTNs of under the same PAN, as well as within the same state under the same GSTN, if there are different branches, the details regarding that, any details regarding any supplies made to agents. Also, all of these documents, they can be maintained in the electronic format, and it should be maintained for at least 72 months, which is 6 years from the due date of annual return of that particular period, or till 1 year after the conclusion of any litigation or investigation, whichever is later, right? So there are certain documents which are required to be submitted during investigation. So there is no exhaustive list as such. So every summons notice, it contains certain specific documents or details or reconciliations which are required to be submitted during the summons proceedings, and we figure out that there are other documents to substantiate our case which may be submitted in the form of any letter post your summons proceedings are over. Post that, you can submit that to the proper officer. Now, certain documents which may be required in the summons notices may be your income tax audit, your income tax returns, your financial statements, trial balance, your audited financial statements, cost audit report, any other reconciliations of sales between GSTR 1, 3B, of input between 2A, 2B and 3B, and etc. Whatever else is required, it needs to be prepared. Right. Now let us move ahead and understand what are the different aspects of a summons proceeding. So now see, summons proceeding is like a judicial proceeding. It is a serious affair, right? And the person who is summoned, he is legally bound to attend to that particular summons at that given date or time in front of the particular proper officer. Now, since as I mentioned that it is a legal obligation that he is legally bound to attend, because this particular summon proceedings, it takes the nature of a judicial proceedings which is carried out in a civil court, right? and where the provisions of the Code of Civil Procedure 1908 is attractive. Hello. Under the provisions of the Code of Civil Procedure 1908. Now, the proper officer under CGST Act, he can issue summons to the person against whom investigation has been initiated, inquiry has been initiated, and can also issue the summons to any co-accused, can be issued to any third person as a witness as well. So basically, the proper officer can issue summons to any person who has knowledge of certain relevant facts to ascertain those particular facts in a summons proceeding. So it is not necessary that the proper officer has to issue summons to only the person against whom the investigation has been issued, right? We will discuss that in the next slide in detail. Now the proper officer can issue summons to the taxpayer or any person whose attendance he considers necessary, now either to give evidence or to produce any document or anything in any inquiry which has all the documents, statements which are made during summon proceedings, interrogation and examination in front of the proper officer has evidentiary value and it can be admitted in the court of law. And we are going to discuss in details regarding that. And as I have mentioned, that it takes the nature of a judicial proceeding, right? And in case if you skip these summons without providing any proper explanation or any request for adjournment or extension, then there are certain sections, section 193, section 228 under Indian Penal Code, whereby all those sections you will attract and you can be even imprisoned and fined, which we are going to discuss later in the later slides. Right now, as I mentioned, that the proper officer can issue summons to any person. Right now, there are certain Madras High Court case law also. There are certain Supreme Court case laws also where it has been upheld that as mentioned that the summons proceedings does not necessarily have to be initiated against the person who is the main accused or who has actually done GST evasion or who has actually smuggled the gold. No, any person who has vital information, relevant information, and who may not have anything to do with the actual GST evasion or the smuggling of certain goods, that person can also be as a witness to a certain facts. If he has those facts, he can be called to summons, right? Now you can refer to this particular Madras High Court judgment in Vittalnathan as well as P. Rustamji versus State of Maharashtra Supreme Court. So where it is clearly mentioned that any person can be summoned by the proper officer, right? Sorry. Okay, so this is first thing. Second thing is, we need to understand the judicial proceedings. Now, what does this mean? This means that summons is a serious affair. So, in case if you are thinking of you are legally bound to attend summons at a particular given time and date, which is mentioned in the summons notice in person, right? Now, if you skip it, if you do not attend it, if you do not give any explanation, you do not apply for adjournment, postponement, and all that, so you can be implicated under Section 193 of IPC, or Section 228 of IPC, which is that you are not cooperating with the particular public servant. Like Section 193 of IPC says, if you are giving any false evidence, you can be imprisoned for up to 7 years with fine. Section 228 of IPC says that if you interfere with any of the proceedings, you can be again fined and imprisoned for 6 months. So this is a serious affair. You need to cooperate, right? Even in summons notice, if you were to see at the end of the particular notice, it is always mentioned in the language that Section 174, Section 175 of IPC can be attracted in case if you do not attend the summons or do not appear, right? Now, there are significant aspects of summons which we need to understand. First, I've mentioned who has the authority to issue summons, who is the proper officer already. Now, sir, the statements which you give to the proper officer during interrogation and examination, can it be admissible in the court of law? Can it be used against you as prosecution for any offence? Can it be used to corroborate any main evidence in a particular GST evasion case? वही तो मुद्दा का बात है ना. तो can it be done so? आपने बहुत हिंदी मूवी में सुने होंगे. In the court scene, the lawyer is saying, "Oh, if you have given any confession to a police officer, it cannot be admitted in the court of law." Reason being is there is Section 25 of Evidence Act. So this particular Evidence Act, the lawmakers had in their mind that police officers, by their intrinsic nature, are violent, may use particular manipulative tactics, be violent, and can extract
confessions, involuntary confessions, false confessions from the particular accused. However, when we were making Customs Act, Central Excise Act, GST Act, the lawmakers did not think that the officers, the tax officers will be this violent or will use any unfair means. So, Section 25 of Evidence Act is not attracted here if you give any evidence, any wording, any statement, any document, anything in during summons. That particular time, it has evidentiary value, it can be admitted in the court of law, it can even go against you. So one has to be very careful. There are case laws also. There are Supreme Court case laws of Ramesh Chandra Mehta. It is mentioned that custom officers are not police officers. So Section 25 Evidence Act is not applicable. There are 3-4 other Supreme Court case laws which I have mentioned here. Also one needs to understand there is a specific provision which I have mentioned, Section 136 Clause B in GST Act, which says that these particular evidences can be used against you in the court of law for the interest of justice, as I mentioned. So it is mentioned in the GST law, right? Now, second thing was the right to remain silent. Now, sir, as it is mentioned under Section 193 of IPC, if you give any false statement, if you fabricate any evidence, you can be imprisoned for 7 years, up to 7 years. So, sir, if you have anything in your mind, are you bound to say that, or can you be silent about it? So there is particular Article 20 sub-Article 3 of the Constitution of India. This is a fundamental right I'm talking about, which says no person accused of any offense can be compelled to be a witness against himself. So he has the right to remain silent. No person is bound to answer any question which exposes him to a criminal charge. This is Section 161 of CRPC. Also, there are case laws of Supreme Court in NSR Krishna Prasad where it says right to remain silent is not an offense and cannot be said to be an obstruction for the proceeding. What does this mean? This means that if you want to remain silent about certain questions which are being asked during summons, which you feel if you were to say, it may implicate you, it may be taken as an evidence, you are expected to not give any false evidence, but you have the right to remain silent on certain things. This is a very important safeguard which all of us, we need to understand, that in front of in a judicial proceeding, even in the court, we have the right to remain silent. Right? This is first thing. Second thing we need to understand, sir, whether you're CA or advocate, you're very jittery, you've got a summons notice, 10 days have passed, you've collated all the information, you are walking towards the anti-evasion department going upstairs. Your CA is there with you, advocate is there with you. Can he sit with you to comfort you? Can he sit with you to help you understand what the statements are being said so? Can he be there to safeguard your human rights? So the settled law as per many Supreme Court guidelines and judgments is he can be at a visible distance but not at an audible distance. What does this mean? He can sit across the class and he can see that no violent tactics are being used against you, you are safe, but he is not supposed to hear what is happening in the interrogation. This is the settled law. However, you can request the proper officer, the superintendent, and you can ask that due to some medical reason or something, whatever, can I have the CA or the advocate with me during interrogation? He will not interfere. He will just sit with me and he can hear. So he may allow. Many cases I have gone for summons, they have allowed. Cooperative officers, they have allowed. But if you exercise it as a right, it is a settled law that they may say that no, they cannot hear, they cannot be a part of it, right? There is also an important thing which we need to understand. We discussed the Swiggy case, Bundle Technologies case, wherein later in the presentation, wherein the Swiggy people were forced to pay tax during investigation proceedings, search and seizure at 4 a.m. in the morning. So in that particular case of Karnataka High Court, Bundle Technologies, later which we'll discuss, they mentioned that in this entire investigation proceeding, where is the infrastructure of CCTV? Where is the infrastructure of microphone? How can we for sure say that this particular person was not under duress while making the payment or giving any explanation or during summons? So, as per this particular case law, Paramveer Singh Saini, this is also very important procedural safeguard for us. It is mandatory by the Supreme Court to install CCTV cameras with microphone facility as a part of infrastructure in all those rooms where interrogation, examination, summon proceedings are being undertaken in the office of DGGI, anti-evasion, range jurisdictional office, any other place. So this is also a safeguard which we should remember. And then after that, we need to understand, very important, law of retraction. Now, sir, just understand, if we have hurriedly made some sort of a statement which is interpreted in the wrong way, we have signed the statement, we don't have a copy, because usually we never receive the copy of the statement which is the evidence, basically they write. And you 2 days later, 3 days later, you're like, oh, what did I say? It is a wrong fact which I've given. I was under stress, I was under duress or coercion, I gave something which I want to retract, which I want to take back at the earliest possible opportunity, 2 days, 1 day, it is not mentioned when, but at the earliest possible opportunity, you can write an affidavit and send across to the particular proper officer. Say that, sir, please replace my original evidence with this new evidence. It should be read in this interpretation, in this manner. So if it is very late, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, then it will be seen as an afterthought, completely planned conspiracy that you are retracting something which you had said earlier, so it may not be admissible then. But you have the right to retract from any statement which you made and signed, but it has to be in a particular as soon as possible, right? Now we can law of cross-examination, another procedural right. What is law of cross-examination? Even in income tax, we have seen this. Any statement given by any witness, co-accused, third person, and if it is used against you as an adverse evidence. So, sir, as a matter of principle of natural justice, me as an accused, I have the right to exercise him to come over, set a date and time and cross-examine him about the veracity of his statements, the validity of his statements. And I can exercise that. Even Supreme Court, there are several Supreme Court judgments where this is a settled law which mentions that if any material has been taken as an evidence in the court of law which is based on the adverse statements made by any co-accused witness, and if the accused, if he has not been able to exercise the right of cross-examining him, that statement evidence should be plucked out and should not be made the basis of that passing that order. Even the Supreme Court has gone way ahead and said in Andaman Timber Industries that the order can be is liable to be null and void if it is based on any adverse statement by any third person and the main person is not given the opportunity to cross-examine that person. So we can exercise. I mentioned 12 case laws here. Most of them are Supreme Court and High Court case laws where we can quote this and we can ensure that we exercise this right. Now, do's and there are few other things also which we need to understand, that we are not expected to remember each and everything during the examination or summons. So, right to refresh one's memory. I will say that, sir, please give me 1 week's time. I'm not very sure right now. I don't want to give any statement half-baked or hurriedly, and I want to regret later or to retract. So please give me some time. I will corroborate this particular fact from my books of accounts or later, and I will give you an undertaking. They are cooperative with that, so please do not give any evidence or any material if you are not very sure during summons, right? Second thing is you have the right to refer to your books of accounts and papers because you're not expected to remember each and everything. Summons is all about, sir, facts, exchange of facts. Please do not ever delve into your interpretation of the law. Don't argue, oh sir, as per law, this is the interpretation, whatever, this is fake invoice, this thing, this should not be this because section 16 subsection 2 clause, this comes. No, just talk on the facts. Right? We are going to discuss that, okay? There are few other necessary important things which you need to keep in our mind. Please prepare all the reconciliations, documents, everything. Once the summon notice comes in, please take the help of a professional. Please get all of that sorted. Please practice and please then go, right? For the avoid giving additional information. Now see, we will discuss one particular case of our client where a particular supplier from where he bought scraps, iron ore scraps, that particular supplier was declared as bogus, non-existent. When search and inspection happened in Noida, there was no one at his place. Now they are thinking that he's a part of a bigger racket where whatever purchases have happened through him in the next 3 years, every person was summoned, all the buyers, because he may be passing on the benefit of input tax credit without the actual supply of goods. So in that particular case, you may have to give additional documents voluntarily to establish a trail of the movement of goods from the point of purchase to the point of sale. But that is not irrelevant additional documents. This is something to substantiate your case. So you should do that. Then, as I mentioned, you will not receive a particular statement of evidence. Whatever you are saying, he is typing. He will take a printout, ask you to sign, read and sign. Please read and sign, because whatever you are saying may be interpreted in a different way, may be written in a different way, and then you are signing it. So you should read each and everything and then sign it. You will not get a copy. Your memories, whatever fresh that time, please note down whatever undertakings you have to give later, right? Because show cause notice will come 2-3 months later, 5 months later, if at all it comes. There are certain guidelines which I mentioned of instruction number 03/2022-23. these particular guidelines, what does this mention? It mentions that summons should be the last resort. Please do not issue summons. No, issue a letter. Issue a letter to ask for information, to seek clarification. If that person does not cooperate, please then issue summons. But if you issue summons, do not use harsh or threatening language. If you have to issue summons to a particular person or any person, please do not issue it in the first instance to the top management, MD, CEO, CFO, because they are not expected to know the day-to-day tax compliances. You should send summons to someone who has that relevant information, so that you can call him and you can take relevant facts. So it can be the finance officer, it can be someone who files your tax returns. So this is also established in addition to this particular instruction, also in your GAIL Gas Limited. It is Delhi High Court judgment. Also, summons should not be issued repeatedly. Issue letter, does not cooperate, issue summons. Take evidence, new evidence comes during investigation, issue summons again, but not on the same evidence. Right? Also, DIN is mandatory. Sir, this may sound very silly and trivial and petty, but I will show you the particular notice. I'm actually unable to show you, but when you get the particular PPT, you will see DGGI Sikkim. They have issued a notice to one of the big casinos there who's our client, and it does not have a DIN. And we challenged the validity of that notice, and it had to be quashed. So you have to check that whether DIN has been generated and mentioned on every communication, even if it is a letter, not just a summons, letter, any investigation, letter, communication in regard to any inquiry, investigation has to have DIN as per these circulars which are mentioned. Even summons have a prescribed format. That format needs to be followed. In that prescribed format, as I mentioned, they mention that 2-3 documents, 2-3 lines they mention about these documents we require, and towards the end, if you do not comply to these summons, section 174, section 175 of IPC will be attracted. What is 74, 175? If you do not cooperate or attend the summons, you may be imprisoned for up to 1 month with fine. 500 rupees or 1000 rupees. 175, if you do not cooperate and give the necessary documents, you can be imprisoned for up to 1 month. Right? So these are actually mentioned there. Now the other noteworthy points from this particular CBIC circular is that every summon has to be with the written permission of the ACDC. Superintendent is issuing, but it has to be a written prior approval from the superior. Please summon people during office hours. What is office hours? Not mentioned. There is this particular case law of Telangana High Court versus Agarwal Foundries, where the court has mentioned 10:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. on weekdays. That is office hours. But practically, are these being followed? In the Swiggy case, we are seeing that if voluntary payment in DRC 03 under 74.5 is being paid at 4 a.m. in the morning, summons are being issued at different odd hours. So that should be curbed. It should not happen. You should not call for any document which is already available with the department, which is GSTR 1, 3B, all of that, right? Now, if 3 summons are issued, you skip it. 1 summon is issued today, 1 month later another, 1 month later another. It's not written 1 month, reasonable time period is mentioned. I am taking as an example 1 month. If you skip all 3, the department has the power to file a complaint with the jurisdictional magistrate, right? As an offender. And then again, section 172, 174, all of those things will come. Now, since I cannot show this actual real life summons to you, I'll just explain and go through what kind of documents we had submitted or advised the client. This particular client had received summons because the supplier was alleged to be non-existent bogus. So he, as per the department, he does not have any place of business. He is just passing on, filing his GSTR 1, and he's passing on the credit. And so all the purchasers, they are availing the benefit of the credit, but they are saying, the department is saying, there is no supply of goods. It's bogus. So as a particular tax professional of a client who receives a summon, who is the purchaser of a bogus supplier, what documents would you submit during summons or after summons? During summons or after? So this. Okay, during summons or after summons to substantiate your case. Okay, so in the summons was mentioned, kindly provide the purchase invoices which you have purchased from the supplier, right? The goods, first thing, and kindly provide the accounting ledger. That's it. But we have voluntarily submitted these additional documents. Hello. Thank you. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you. So we have additionally made these documents and we have submitted, and these are relevant. These are not additionally relevant documents. What is it? Facts, e-way bill of the purchase. Second, transporter Bilty, transporter invoice is also there, transporter, your consignment note is also there, right? Third thing, bank statement with highlighted transactions of the actual payment to the supplier, right? Undertaking taken from the supplier that he has actually sold. Undertaken, now these were the documents which were submitted were these limited, but as with a letter after summons within 10 days we submitted additional documents which substantiated the trail of our movement of goods from these bogus, alleged bogus supplier to the customer. What did we submit further? This was, we submitted earlier the purchase side, now the sale side. So sale invoice, e-waybill of the sale, consignment notes, undertaking from the customers that sir, we've actually received the goods and we have made payment, bank statements of receipt of the payments, bank statement mentioning the payment to the transporter who has taken out the goods. Right, undertaking, stock item register. Now stock item register is very important. If we would have been able to see, if the screen would have been there. Nevertheless, what is stock statement? Stock in, purchase 70,000 kg, stock out to these people 70,000 kg. So it is mentioned as your stock in, stock out. So you need to establish that sir, you are saying goods have not been received. I have sold these goods to these people and I have all the factual evidence. So I am going to submit that. So we have submitted that, we have not received the show cause notice till now. So we don't know whether we will receive it or not, but ideally one should. There were photos of the undertakings from the transporter as well as the customer. Nevertheless, there is one, this photo which I want to show is without din a letter has been issued to the casino in Sikkim. Without din from DGGI, Sikkim. But we challenged it. They required all sorts of details, like 3-4 pages details. They studied each and every line item of PL and balance sheet and they wanted details regarding that. They saw 16 suppliers invoices in 2A. Why have you claimed all that input? Please tell us the necessary link with your business. Why have you claimed, right? So all of that. Now we are going to discuss, okay, the contentious issues, the burning issues. One of it is the forceful payments by the supplier in the guise of voluntary payment under section 74 subsection 5 during investigation proceedings, search, seizure, inspection. What does this mean? This means that before your show cause notice is issued under section 74 subsection 1, 73 subsection 1, you at any given point in the investigation you can make payment, voluntary payment. That is rule, no problem, but it has to be voluntary, sir. You feel that it is your admitted liability, you have wronged, you will pay interest and you will pay 15% penalty on the tax. You will pay any time. But sir, this mechanism is being used for duress, coercion, threat for arrest. You pay right now, otherwise we may arrest you. So people are to buy peace with the department as a goodwill gesture with the department during search, seizure, inspection. They are making such payments which are actually not tax, which are actually, they have no authority to collect this. Even it cannot be considered as an advance tax pending, which can be adjusted against the final liability. No, it cannot be. And I'm not saying this is being said by several case laws. Here, Madras High Court in Sri Nandi Dal Mills, it is clearly mentioned that as I told you, the law of retraction, this particular assessee during investigation, he was very scared, he made the payment. In 74-5, he said voluntary, made the payment. 2 days later, after the search team went, he said, no sir, I retract. This was all done under coercion, all done under duress, all done under the threat to arrest. And I want to retract, please give me show cause notice, I want to contest this and please refund my amount, which is not tax. Where in the law is mentioned that you can take particular this amount during investigation. So nowhere in the law it is mentioned. When can a liability be generated? Only when a notice is issued, order is issued, liability is there, then you have to make payment. There is no mandate under law to make payment as advance tax, as liability, as admitted tax, apart from voluntary payment. In DRC form 03, DRC 03, under section 74.5, 73.5. But that is being used as a hatkanda to buy peace and all that. So in all those cases where the assessee has retracted and said, no sir, this is under duress, and they have filed complaint and they have filed writ petitions, they have got back the refund in many of the cases. So there are many case laws here. We are mentioning about the Swiggy case law also of Karnataka High Court, wherein this particular, again, Paramveer Singh Saini, this case law of Supreme Court again was quoted by the Karnataka High Court. They said, sir, where is the CCTV? Where is the microfilm? We want to hear what happened. Because how else will the court understand that there was duress, coercion during summons, spot summons were issued. They made payment at 4 a.m. in the morning. So they said that no sir, this was all done. Initially the assessee says, oh, it's all voluntary, we made payment by own volition. Later on they retract, they say, no sir, this has actually been done involuntarily, we want the refund back. Refunds have been granted with interest. So this is a necessary safeguard which we need to understand. Please do not make payments until and unless you feel it is actually your liability and you should make payment under DRC 03 voluntarily under section 74 subsection 5. Right? Again, Bhumi Associate, this is a particular Gujarat High Court case law. This court, Gujarat High Court mentions guidelines to CBIC. There was no guidelines then. They mentioned that please come out with a particular circular with these guidelines, at least. First guideline, there is no necessary mandate to make any payment in any form during any investigation proceeding. The court is saying, investigation proceeding, inspection, investigation proceeding, your summons, investigation proceeding, anything, right? For second thing, even if the person wants to make payment voluntarily on the day of investigation, please ask him not to do so. The court is saying, ask the assessee to wait until at least one day after the search team has gone and then make the payment, because we want to be very sure it is voluntary. Because during the course of investigation, if you are making any payment, it is very easy to correlate and say it may be involuntary, it may be out of pressure tactics. Third thing, the court said that please have a necessary mechanism. After the search team leaves, there needs to be a mechanism. If the assessee thinks that he has involuntarily made payment, please file complaint against that officer. And if proven, that officer will be subject to disciplinary actions. It's a very strong worded particular judgment by this. After all of this pressure, the CBIC came out with their notification, which we are going to discuss, circular. Now, how many of us we know that while making payment voluntarily of output tax during search, during show cause, during audit, during any proceeding, we can also use electronic credit ledger, the balance of ITC as per electronic credit ledger. This was clarified by Circular 172/04/2022. This says that even if the officers, they force you to make payment of output tax using the cash ledger in your electronic cash ledger, no, please do not deposit cash, no, use your electronic credit ledger for that. But for penalty, but for interest, but for any other late fees, fine, anything, you can use your cash ledger, you have to. So this is extremely important for us to understand. Please do not budge under the pressure of any of the officers. As I mentioned, after all of this pressure from the court, the department came out with a particular instruction 01/2022-23. They said the same things, not with so much liberty, but they said there is no need to make any payment in any form during the investigation as a mandate. But again, there is always an option to make payment voluntarily under section 74 subsection 5 during the course of investigation. What is 74/5? It means अगर आप टैक्स का पेमेंट भुगतान कर देते हैं, इंटरेस्ट भुगतान कर देते हैं, 15% पेनल्टी भुगतान कर देते हैं, and if it is all satisfied, there is no need to issue show cause notice under section 74 subsection 1. Matter close. कोई show cause ही नहीं है, adjudication ही नहीं है. That is voluntary payment, right? So you can do that. Now, can we say so that all of these payment which is being made, because payment under duress, payment under coercion, payment under protest, these words are used by courts, not by me. But is there any concept of payment under protest under GST Act? No. Under central excise, we had this particular provision, means any adjudication order came which is unfavorable. I want to challenge it, I don't concur to it, I want to file appeal, but I don't want to go against the interest of the revenue also. I will pay a big chunk of money, deposit, or the entire amount under protest, and say that if I win the case or if the appeal comes in favor of me, I will get back the entire money. But there is no such mechanism explicitly mentioned in GST. But the case laws here also, many of them, 90%, they are saying that we don't want to, this money which has been collected in the guise of voluntary payment during investigation, it has to be refunded. It cannot be used pending adjustment with your liability which will come 6 months later, 1 year later after your order is issued, right, under show cause notice and all. Now, there are many, I've mentioned here, there are many violation of Article 265 is there, violation of Article 300A, all of these grounds are there basically in case if you are subject to, involuntary payments and all that, you can contest and you can mention all of this. We now talk about parallel proceedings, the legality of parallel proceedings under GST law. What is parallel proceedings? Parallel proceeding means, sir, summons is issued by, I am registered in Bilegata. My registration is that means under the state authority of GST. means as per Circular 1/2017, I have been administratively registered with my jurisdictional offices there. So superintendent from my state office will particular issue a summons. Can central tax officer at the same time initiate any particular proceeding? Can audit department or can DGGI, can DRI, can anti-evasion department, can they issue any proceedings? No, they cannot. As per section 6 subsection 2 clause B of CGST Act, where it mentions where a proper officer under SGST means a proper officer of the State Department has initiated any proceedings on a subject matter, one particular subject matter, no proceedings on the same subject matter for the same tax period on the same taxpayer can be initiated by the central tax officers and vice versa. So what does this mean? This means that also a clarification letter, extremely important clarification letter, CBIC 2043, all of this has been issued on 5th May 2018, whereby it mentions if a central tax officer issues any proceedings, initiates on any proceeding on intelligence-based enforcement action to a taxpayer who is registered under the state also, state authority, but a central tax officer is issuing summons to a particular taxpayer who is registered under state tax authority, can he do so? Yes, he can do so. And if he does so, you don't have to hand over your papers to the state tax authority. No, the central tax authority will continue the investigation and can come to a logical end. That is mentioned as per this letter. So, whenever on a same subject matter, if summons have already been issued by state or center, anti-evasion, DGGI, they cannot issue similar investigations, not only summons, but investigation of any type, even show cause notices, right? Now, there are several positive case laws regarding this, which I have mentioned here. One of it which I would like to mention is RP Buildcon Private Limited. It was Calcutta High Court, where parallel proceedings conducted by 3 wings of the same department for the same period not allowed. Anti-evasion state, DGGI and jurisdictional office all issued either summons or some particular show cause notice or some particular investigation letter. So if SGST, your state authority, has already issued proceedings, your anti-evasion or DGGI, their actions need to be put on hold. Their proceedings cannot continue, right? So there are many such, but one needs to understand that this has to be on the same subject matter. If there are separate subject matter, one is wrongly input tax credit claimed, bogus, your bogus supplier. Second issue is 180 days, you have not reversed your input. These are 2 separate issues. For 180 days, this gets caught usually in audits, departmental audit under section 65. Show cause notice has been issued. But on a separate matter, where your supplier is alleged to be bogus, that is with the anti-evasion, 2 separate for the same period can continue. Those are 2 separate matters. There is no bar on that if it is not overlapping. There are several case laws, Bhavani Textile, all of those, you can mention that. I mentioned 12-13 case laws here positive. They mention the same thing. If proceedings have started by any authority, state or center, the counterparty, means the center or the state, they cannot initiate any proceedings under investigation. Now there is one negative case law, means case law, a particular judicial precedent which goes against this particular settled law, which is GK Trading Company versus Union of India, wherein it is mentioned that state tax authority had already issued summons under section 70, right? And proceedings were on. They were not at the summons level, they were later, at the show cause level. Now the center, the anti-evasion wing or the DGGI, they issue summons again. And this particular summons, it is mostly on the same matter. Now, whether these two can concurrently can continue. So this was said that any inquiry which is initiated under section 70 in the name of summons is an inquiry, it's not a proceeding. So section 6 subsection 2 clause B says 2 proceedings cannot continue together on the same matter. This court is saying that, sir, right now one summons happened earlier, now it is at a different state, it is a proceeding, right? Now this particular new summon which has come, it is not a proceeding, it is at the inquiry level. Summon is inquiry, so it can continue. Change of words. 2 proceedings cannot continue. 1 inquiry, 1 proceeding can continue. So, this is a contentious issue. Now, let us discuss the last thing. I'll just take 5 minutes here. So, a particular guideline was issued by the CBIC on 30th of March 2024 in regard to summons and investigation. This is your instruction 01/2023-24. What does it mention? It mentions that every investigation has to be initiated by a principal commissioner. In the case where the investigation has to be started against big industrial houses, multinational companies, or if it involves levying GST for the first time, or if it has a national implication, or if those matters are before the GST Council. So at that point in time, you need approval of a higher ranked officer, which is a zonal principal chief commissioner. Now they have also mentioned that for the ease of business, all of this is for transparency. They are saying that, sir, before you start an investigation, please do an all-round check whether how many investigation authorities have already delved into the case on different subject matters also. So the principal commissioner will evaluate how many investigations are happening, how many litigations, adjudications are happening, and if possible, they are going to ensure one investigating agency takes it forward, if feasible, so that harassment is less. Right, all of these were mentioned. Also, it was mentioned that any commencement of investigation against any listed company, public sector undertaking, corporation, any such thing should not be started with a summons. It should be started with an official letter, and investigation should be concluded within 1 year. So, all of these are guidelines. Last thing which I want to talk about is the latest development in regard to restoration of provisionally attached property. In October 2023, now a particular amendment was done in Rule 159 Sub Rule 2. It was mentioned that once a bank account or a property is provisionally attached by the commissioner by issuing an order in DRC 22, for 1 year it is valid. But after 1 year, there was a mandate that the commissioner has to give a written permission for restoration of this. Otherwise, the bank people, authorities, they will not unfreeze your bank. So it would take months and months to get around the commissioner for that written order in DRC 23. So for the ease or the convenience of the taxpayer, they have added that the restoration it will happen for two things. First thing is, if a written order is given by the commissioner, or after 1 year, automatically this particular property or bank account will be released. Now they don't have to chase the particular commissioner for that particular written order. It's a particular ease, and it is already a law as per notification 52/2023. So due to paucity of time, this is mostly what I wanted to cover. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and you may ask me.
Let us have the chairman remarks.
Sure. I would like to invite sir.
Thank you, Ishan, for wonderful deliberations on various aspects. What I just would like to mention here, it is really easy to advise to the client that you don't make the payment because there is no law.